There was a stretch of about 2 years where I knew exactly how many days it had been since my son called me. Not roughly. Exactly. I could have told you the number at any hour you asked. And I want you to understand that he was not a bad son, and I was not a helpless old man, and nothing dramatic had happened between us. He was busy living his life, the way I was busy living mine at his age. But I had started keeping account, and once a man starts keeping account, he is not really living his Sunday anymore. He is watching a telephone. I have since been told one sentence by a woman older than me that took that whole weight off my chest, and I need to be careful how I say it, because it is not stop caring. It is almost the opposite of that. But if I give it to you in the first minute, it will sound cold, and you would be right to shut me off. So, let me earn it. Let me first say the part that nobody says out loud, because I think some of you have been carrying this alone and have never once heard another person admit it. The waiting is real. It is not silly, and you are not weak for feeling it, and you are not a bitter person for noticing. If you have ever picked up your phone in the middle of a perfectly good afternoon just to check that the sound was turned on, you know what I am talking about. If you have ever caught yourself doing the arithmetic, it has been 11 days, it has been 3 weeks, it was the second Sunday in April, then you know. If you have ever rehearsed the conversation in your head, the whole thing, both sides, what you would say and how you would keep your voice level so they would not hear anything in it, then you know exactly what I am talking about. And here is the one that gets me, the one I am least proud of. If you have ever decided, quietly, with your jaw set, that this time you are not going to be the one to call first, then friend, you and I have been sitting in the same room. I did all of that. I am 71 years old. I have been a grown man for 50 years, and I did every bit of that. And the strange part, the part I could never explain to myself, was that nothing was wrong. There was no argument to point at. Nobody had said a cruel thing. My son had a job that ate him alive, and 2 children of his own, and a wife with her own mother to look after, and he loved me. I knew that then, and I know it now. So I could not even go and be properly angry about it, because there was nothing to be angry at. There was just a number in my head that got bigger, and a Sunday that got quieter, and a chair by the window that I sat in a little longer each week than I meant to. Now, a mind that is waiting does not sit still. It starts explaining. And I want to tell you about the explanations, because I have come to think they do more damage than the silence ever did. First, I decided it was something I had said. I went back through Christmas in my head, the whole day, looking for it. There was a moment at the table where I had made a remark about how he works too much, and I had meant it kindly, and I decided that was it, that was the thing. He had taken it as criticism, and he was giving me distance over it. I built a whole case. Then, a few weeks later, I threw that theory out and decided it was simpler and worse, which was that I had become a chore, not a father anymore. An item on a list, down near the bottom, the sort of thing a busy man means to get to and does not. And then, on the bad nights, I would go one further and tell myself that he was closer to her family, that they were nearer, that they were easier, and that I had somehow lost a competition nobody had told me I was in. None of that was true. I want to be very plain. None of it was true. I know that now for a fact. But that is what a man builds in a quiet house when he is keeping account, and every one of those theories made the next Sunday a little heavier than the last. And I will show you how far it can go, because I have a worse example than my son, and it cost me an entire year. I did not speak to my brother for a year over a piece of furniture. That is the truth of it. There was a plain wooden chest from our mother's house, nothing valuable, nothing anyone would have wanted for its own sake, and when she passed, it ended up at his place instead of mine. That is the whole crime. He did not steal it. I never once asked him for it. I waited for him to offer it, because I felt a decent brother would have offered, and he never did, and I let that sit. A year went by. A full year, and I was in my 60s by then, and I did not have years to be handing out, and the two of us lived 40 minutes apart the whole time. When we finally spoke, at a funeral of all places, he had no idea. None. He was not being clever. He genuinely did not know there was anything wrong. He thought I had gone quiet because I was grieving our mother. He said, "I figured you needed room. That is what I got for a year of my life. I figured you needed room." So the next thing I tried with my son, I am almost ashamed to describe, and I suspect a number of you have tried the same thing. I decided I would reach out, but I would do it in a way that would let me find out where I stood. I sent him a message, and I put a little hook in it. I wrote something like, "Thinking of you, no need to reply." Now, I did not mean no need to reply. I meant the exact opposite of that. I meant, please reply, and I have made it easy and dignified for you, and now I will find out whether I matter. And he did what any reasonable man does when he is given permission not to reply on a busy Thursday. He did not reply. He read it. He thought his father was being nice, and he got on with his day. And I sat there and took that as evidence. Actual evidence, in a case I was building against my own son, using a rule I had written and never shown him. I want you to hear how mad that is when it is said out loud, because when it is only happening inside your chest, it feels perfectly reasonable. Now I have to be fair, and I have to tell you the part that makes me look worst, because if I leave it out, this whole talk turns into an old man complaining about the young, and that is not what this is, and I would not do that to your children. I was the son once. My father lived alone for the last 11 years of his life in a house about 2 hours from mine. I can sit here and tell you with a straight face that I loved that man, and I can tell you that I called him when it occurred to me, which was not often. It did not once cross my mind that he might be sitting in a chair keeping account. Not once in 11 years. I was not being cruel. I was 38 years old. I was drowning in my own life, and my father was simply always there, the way the mountain is always there, and you do not call the mountain to see how it is doing. When he died, I found that he had kept every card I ever sent him, and there were not many, and they fit in one drawer with room to spare, and I sat on the floor of that house and understood something about waiting, that I then somehow managed to forget for another 25 years. So when I talk about my son, understand what I am describing. I am not describing a bad young man. I am describing myself at his age, exactly. Whatever your children are doing to you right now, most of them are doing precisely what you did, and they will understand it at the same age you understood it, which is to say too late to fix it with the person they owe it to, and only in time to be gentle with somebody else. And I should tell you what the counting actually took from me, because it is easy to talk about this as a feeling, and it was not a feeling, it was days. Real ones off the end of a life that was already short on them. My granddaughter came to stay with me one weekend in the middle of all this. She was 9. Her father, my son, was the one who drove her over, and he stayed about 4 minutes at the door, and I noticed the 4 minutes, and I put it in the book. And then I had 2 whole days with that child, which is a gift a man my age should get down on his knees about, and I want to tell you honestly how I spent them. I spent them half present. We made pancakes and I was listening for the phone. She showed me a drawing she had done of my house, with the window and the chair, and I said it was lovely, and I was thinking about whether he would call to check on her, and whether that would count as calling me. She talked to me at bedtime about a girl at school who had been unkind to her, and I have to live with the fact that I do not remember the girl's name, because I was not fully in that room either. Her father did call, that Sunday, And I remember the feeling that went through me when the phone finally went, and it was not love. It was relief that the number had gone back to zero. That is what I had turned my son's voice into. A receipt. 2 days with a 9-year-old. I paid for them with a telephone. And I did not understand what I was doing, or that there was any other way to be, until the woman 4 houses down finally said one sentence to me. Now, let me tell you about her, because she is the one who got through, and I had her wrong for 11 years. She lived 4 houses down. She was older than me by a good deal, widowed a long time, and she had one daughter who lived in another state and came at Christmas most years. One year, the daughter did not come at all, and in 11 years of knowing that woman, I never once saw her look disappointed. Not once, and I was watching, because by then I was the sort of man who watches for that. And I made up my mind about her early, the way you do. I decided she was a little closed off, a little cool about her own family. One of those people who has quietly given up expecting much and has made her peace by caring less. I remember thinking that was a sad way to end up, and I remember feeling slightly superior about it because at least I still cared enough to be hurt. I was wrong about her in a way that embarrasses me to this day, because that woman cared enormously. I found it out slowly, in pieces. She knew the names of her grandchildren's teachers. She knew which one was frightened of the dark and which one had trouble with reading. She sent things constantly, small things, and she never mentioned it and never asked whether they had arrived. She kept a photograph on the wall in the place where her eye would land first thing in the morning. And when that daughter did come, that house was lit up like a church at Christmas for 3 straight days, and you could hear the two of them laughing from the road. She cared as much as I did. I think she cared more than I did. She simply was not keeping the count, and at the time I could not see any difference between those two things, and so I read her wrong for over a decade. And I would probably have gone on reading her wrong, except that one September afternoon I was sitting on her front step with a coffee going cold in my hand, and I said out loud the thing I had never said to another living person. I told her it had been 19 days. I told her I did not know what I had done, and I told her that I felt like an old fool for even knowing the number. She did not comfort me. I want you to know that because I think I wanted comforting, and if she had given it to me, I would have gone home with my ledger intact and nothing would have changed. She let it sit a moment, and then she said one sentence. She said, "You are sending that boy a bill for a debt he never agreed to." I did not like it. I want to be honest about that, because when somebody tells you a true thing, the first feeling is very rarely gratitude. It is usually that they have not understood you. So I said, "He is my son." And she said, "Yes, he is your son. He is not your debtor." And then she said the rest of it, and this is the part I have carried ever since. She said I had been keeping a ledger, not on paper, in my chest. And in that book I had been quietly writing down everything for years. Every time I called first, every 2-hour drive, every birthday I remembered, every time I bit my tongue when I wanted to say something. All of it went in as a credit, and it built up, and after enough years I was owed. And I had never shown that book to my son. He had never seen one page of it. He did not know it existed. He had not signed anything. So, of course, he never paid. How could he? A man cannot settle a debt he was never told about, on a schedule he has never seen. He was always going to fail, and each time he failed, I made a new entry and got a little more owed and a little more sore. The whole account existed inside one man, and it was me. He lost nothing. I paid for it every Sunday for 2 years. Now, hear the next part, because this is where people take this idea and ruin it. She was not telling me to stop caring. She was not telling me to protect myself or harden up or love him less so that it would hurt less. That is the cheap version of this. It is everywhere, and it will make your last years cold and small. She was telling me to tear up the invoice. Only the invoice. Keep everything else. Keep the loving, keep the calling, keep the 2-hour drive, and give all of it the way you give a gift, which means no receipt, no due date, and no quiet note in your chest about what it entitles you to. Because there is a difference between hope and expectation, and I had the two of them tangled together for most of my life. Hope is open. Hope says it would be lovely if he called this week, and if he does not, my Sunday is still mine. Expectation has a bill attached, and until that bill is paid, I am not really in the room I am sitting in. Hope costs you nothing. Expectation costs you the afternoon. And what I lost was never my son. He was fine the whole time. What I lost was hundreds of my own days. So I went home that afternoon and I called him first, and the how of it is everything. I did not call to make a point. I did not open with, well, it has been a while. I put not one drop of that ledger into my voice because he would have heard it. They always hear it. I called him the way you would call a friend you like. I asked about the trouble he was having at his work, and I listened, and after 20 minutes he was laughing at something, and then he said, "Hey, is everything all right? You never call on a Tuesday." And I said, "Everything is fine. I just wanted to hear your voice." He called me that Sunday. And I would love to end there, but I will not lie to an old friend, so here is the honest version. There have been plenty of Sundays since when he did not call. The whole difference, the entire difference, is that I do not know how many. I stopped counting, and I never started again. And one thing happened that she never warned me about. When I stopped presenting the bill, people came closer. Not only him. It turns out you can feel it when somebody thinks you owe them, even when they never say a word, and nobody moves toward that. My table got fuller in my late 60s than it had been in my 50s. I did not get colder. I got warmer. So here is the small thing, and you can do it tomorrow. There is a name in your chest with a number attached to it. You knew the name before I finished that sentence. Call that person first this week and go in carrying nothing. No line about how long it has been. No test, no little hook, no need to reply. Ask them one real question and then be quiet and let them answer it. You may not get the thing you have been waiting for, but you will get your Sunday back, and at our age that is not a small thing. That is most of what we have. I waited 2 years for a phone to ring. My father, I suspect, waited 11, and I never asked him. Do not wait. Tear up the bill, keep the love, and call first. Rest well tonight.